What is up, podheads? Episode 100 of the Podioslave podcast is coming at you right now. And hey, guys, we made it to 100. Pretty fucking cool.
It's all about the Benjamins, baby.
All about the Bennies, Centennial, insanity. Yeah, we're going to raise our nerd bar up a little bit.
Yeah, most pods end after what, 8, Twan? Is that what the research you saw?
Yeah, most end after 8. And I wonder what happens. Like either they don't have any listeners or it wasn't what they expected or what. But a lot of pods...
It's harder than they thought.
Yeah, you got to promote it. You got to prep for it. You got to edit it. Not everyone's cut out to make it in this biz. Not saying we have, but we're here.
No, we haven't, but...
Yeah, we're still showing up. We still clock in. Yeah, so 8. So that's like 2 months maybe if you're dropping one a week and you're like, all right, I'm tired.
Like, man, my girlfriend won't even download it anymore.
Yeah.
But we get the perfect attendance award. That's got to be worth something. And people have listened. People have been guests, and thank you to those folks. We couldn't do this without you guys. So the listeners, our spouses, our guests, I mean, everyone has had a part of this. We've equated this to an engine, and all those are important pieces to keeping that engine going. The engine has to be fed, and the engine's gotten us to some badass places. I mean, we've had... I looked tonight. This is episode 100. If you count this episode, 41 of those episodes have been with a guest.
Wow.
Nuts. Wow, really?
Yes. And some of them are repeats. We Spose and Rob and...
Greg.
And Greg, Jesus, the king.
The all-time.
Shouts to Greg.
He's the fourth member. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, weddings, kids, vacations, we haven't missed a week. And that's thank you to you guys, Tony and Nate, but also the guests and listeners. So shout outs to everyone listening, even if it's one episode.
Yeah. I just got the chime in my head from when we were kids, like the made possible by listeners like you, like the PBS thing. Right. It's actually true. It actually translates now. It's like, oh yeah, without you guys, everyone listening, like I think it would still be possible, but it adds an extra fire to what we're doing. Like, okay, like people all over the world are listening to this. That's insane to me, hearing us geek out every week. So yeah, thank you to everyone. We're gonna keep rocking.
Yeah, I don't feel like we've slowed down, which has been awesome. I don't feel like it isn't fun, which is also awesome. Having done this now for the better part of 2 years, and it is because of all those things that you guys mentioned. All the family being okay with us sitting in front of our computers talking to each other for 2 hours once a week or whatever it is. And then talking to other people, having anybody say yes to us to come on has been both humbling and amazing. And we've had conversations with people we've wanted to talk to for years, as we've said numerous times, and we got to. And I mean, it's been fucking badass the whole way. And then anybody that's checked us out, if you have clicked on this one and this is the first one you've listened to, awesome. Thank you. Go back and check out some other ones. If it's the 99th or 100th one you've listened to, even better. We love that you've been here for it, and we really appreciate you. So thanks, guys. So
with that, we wanted to hit the triple digits with a bang. We wanted to do something that was really a culmination and compilation of a lot of the guests that we've had on the show. So we want to do something special, and that special thing is we brought, as you know, you've clicked on the episode, we brought a bunch of guests back. We wanted to find out everyone's kind of down-home cooking comfort food, really go-to album. This is the go-to album that it could be 5 years old, it could be 20 years, but it just hasn't left your rotation, whether it's CD player, MP3, Napster, Spotify, whatever your jam is. It's just a go-to. It's that comfort. You get your zen, you come back to ground zero, and we got some good ones. We're not going to spoil it. We're going to have you listen to it. Anything before we jump into it, gentlemen?
I mean, it's all over the map, right? It's similar to the guests. It's a lot of surprises in here. Let's put it that way. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, there. I'm thinking about them now. There's quite a few.
Right. It's all over the map.
For sure. All right, Nate, who we have first?
Yeah. So the first guest we had was Josh Toomey of Talk to Me podcast.
And if you go listen to episode 81, if you want to listen to our conversation with Josh, here is his comfort food album.
Oh man, that's a good question, because it's so all over the map. I talk about it all the time. Being into the victory bands, being into, like you said, Carcass, being into so many different genres back in the day. What's an album I can put on, just kind of go home to? I mean, I guess if you're going to go with that, I mean, I know it's kind of on topic lately, but the Metallica's Black Album was the kind of game changer for me. And I know for the years and years that was such a bad thing to say with elitist metalheads from like, oh, they died when Cliff died, and Justice for All was the last good album, and but I mean, Black Album blew my mind. Like it Enter Sandman video comes on MTV. I was 12 years old. I had been listening to a little bit of hard rock and stuff like that at the time, but like Metallica, there was a good 2 or 3 year period in there. Actually, I just talked to my dad today about this because he watched the Jason Newsted stuff on YouTube, and he's just like, you could tell you were having a good time. And he remembers those, back in the day. I mean, my walls were not much different than they are now down here, but covered in Metallica posters. It was like all Metallica. All we talked about was Metallica. And early bands, we would just cover Metallica. Like, we can't write original songs. Metallica wrote all the best songs. So yeah, I mean, just going back to the Black Album and listening to it again. I bought the box set and just kind of diving into that and just revisiting that album, just start to finish. Once you get past the overplayed singles, I mean, that the B-sides and or side B and Holier Than Thou and all that stuff, I mean, still hold up.
Totally agree. Timeless album that it's why it moves so many units to this day. So
yeah, it still sells crazy. And I think it with the re-release in the box set, I think it went back into the top 10 of Billboard.
Jesus.
30 years later.
All right. Now, here is Spose. He was on episode 29 with us. That is a little more of his life and times in music. And then we had him back for episodes 82 and 83 to talk Kanye West and the Kanye West catalog. But here is his Comfort Food album.
I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm sorry. One popped right into my mind, so I'm just going to say it. And
Perfect.
It's Is This It by The Strokes.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Nice. I didn't see that coming. Nice. All right. Why?
That album's never let me down. Every time. It's what I need. It's it's just perfect. It's the vibe I'm looking for. It's like, it's fun. It's fun. I another album that like, I'm almost like, as somebody who's from like the 90s era and not the early 2000s era, in my mind, like musically, that's how I feel about myself. But like, and this is no knock to their previous album, but the album The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance is a all-timer for me and something that I put on weekly.
Nice.
Wow. Nice.
Yep.
Weekly. I do it all the time when I'm doing the dishes. I just belt it out. Like, I fucking love it.
All right, next up, we have Brian Colburn of the Playlist Wars podcast. So Brian joined us for episode 84 for a Concert Wars, kind of a spin on what they do, Brian and Gomez. Here is Brian's pick.
Oh, that's actually an easy one. Considering all the different music I listen to, you think this would be hard, but this was the first album I remember listening to with my parents growing up. It's the album I've listened to more times than I could ever remember, and I never get sick of it. And it's The Cars, self-titled.
Nice.
The Cars.
Nice.
So good.
This album ushered a new genre of music. It introduced new wave to the world. Whether you like new wave or not, if an album introduces a genre, you have to give it respect. But for me, the respect comes from the fact that this album, I literally listened to it with my parents so much that my dad's original vinyl had skips in Good Times Roll. And it wasn't until I got the first CD that I didn't think the skips were actually part of the damn song, because I had heard it so much, because I would record it onto cassettes and listen to it in my Walkman, but the skips were there. So when I first heard it without the skips, I was like, what's that? There's actually words here. Like I've listened to this album so many times. I've gone on the IF and Love This Record podcast, as well as Pick a Disc, which is out of London, to talk about this album. So I've talked well over 3 hours about this album between the two podcasts, and I could go on forever about how much I love this album. It's just a brilliant piece of art. Every song on it's fantastic. You've got your radio hits, but you've also got these experimental things. You've got these weird things. You've got these things that have a punky vibe to it. The Cars were kind of all over the place, and it was tongue in cheek, and it was dark, but it was pop friendly, and you could sing along to it, but it had some grit. And at the end of the album, it ends with a saxophone solo over new wave music, which shouldn't work, but does because it's the Cars. Rick Ocasek was a friggin' genius.
Yep. Agreed. He was a genius.
I damn near broke out in tears when I was at the Stone Temple Pilots Rival Sons concert the night he died. And when word started spreading through the crowd that he died, I couldn't enjoy Stone Temple Pilots that night because I was friggin' heartbroken on the way home. Like,
yeah.
I never got to see them live. I never will now. And the album just holds a real special place in my heart. And I can listen to it anytime, anywhere, from start to finish. It's just a perfect album.
Yes. Great call. Great album. And now I'm going to go listen to it. That's going to be my post show here. I'm going to go listen to that.
Late 70s too. I mean, you put someone on planet Earth and they listen to this and you ask them, what year was that made? I don't think they'd pin 1970s, you know? Well, they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know anything, but you know what I mean. I would say 80s for sure. Yeah. So this was ahead of its time.
Definitely ahead of its time, and it's an album that you could listen to now, and it doesn't sound dated.
Yep.
I mean, yes, they use the electronic drums and stuff, but musically, the punky vibe to songs like "Don't You Stop" could fit in with any one of these indie rock bands that are out there now doing what the Cars did 40 years ago.
Yep.
And it's just, it speaks volumes to what these guys were able to bring in. If you listen to the Cars self-titled and then you listen to Heartbeat City, you're listening to two different bands here.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff they did in 77, it's a mind-blowing album. And I, you know, it's one of those albums that to me is a perfect album. When you think about the amount of hits on it, you think about like Boston's self-titled album where every song was a hit. To me, that's the Cars self-titled.
Totally. And, you know, this is a band that I first started listening to when I was I think I was a freshman or sophomore in high school, just hanging out in the weight room for football, 2000. And just when I needed pop song, we're like, all right, cool. Like, let's do my bench set right now. So yeah. And that was 22 years ago, 21 years ago. So it's timeless. It was always timeless. It continues to be timeless to this day.
Yeah. Down to the artwork too. Like it's so captivating. So like, I don't know. There's such a mystique about the Cars because they weren't really like a public band, and especially Rick Ocasek. He was kind of like I don't know, recluse, right? You never heard of him.
There's a reason why Weezer and Rick Ocasek had such a perfect symbiotic relationship because he produced a lot of their albums. But you think about the vibe; this was not your cool rock band. These were not the guys that were getting on the front cover of magazines. These were the kind of the outcasts that just made fantastic friggin' music.
Right. Yeah.
Totally. Great record. Great pick. Yes. This fits perfect.
All right. Next up, the de facto fourth host of the podcast on episode 9, 41, 64, and 85. We got good old Greg Bergdorf of Zebrahead and Bourbon Brothers fame. One of our, at this point, I say he's like a good friend of ours, especially you, Tone.
I mean, he's a good friend of all of ours just from the time that we've spent nerding out with him, right? I mean, we love Greg, and we're going to go a little longer here with this intro just because Greg has been kind enough to talk to us 4 times. And then I got to meet him last summer, so that was fun too.
Greg rules. Talk about everything you thought he would be growing up, and you finally meet him, talk to him. He's everything and more. So shout outs to Greg. Here's Greg's pick.
I mean, there's so many, but I will tell you this. You use the word comfort, and a lot of times on tour, and you're on week 6 of 8 of being gone, and before the 8-week tour you were home for 3 weeks and you were out 6 weeks before that, and you're just like, I just want to go home. Yeah. I'm done. Please stop. I would go to sleep to Pet Sounds all the time. And
wow,
that would be something that would I would go to sleep with. And I would always start it on John B. It's got the line in the song, "This is the worst trip I've ever been on." Oh, yeah. And before it goes on towards the end. And but the harmonies throughout that whole record are Brian Wilson's a musical genius.
Yep.
To put that record together, especially in a time like that when there's no Pro Tools and there's no like plug-in that's going to create the harmonies that he wrote out. And it's just everything about that record is it's a perfect record for me.
Well, it transports you out of the van,
Yeah.
on tour. It's like the opposite of being in a van.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was just it was everything I loved about music and a record, like from being a concept record, just the musical genius of it, the out of bounds stuff that would have been, I guess, is that still a rock record at that point? Like, I mean, Beach Boys, but right, it gets into, it's definitely groundbreaking for its time of like, even the other guys in the band were like, Brian, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, right.
That's a good choice. That's a great choice.
I did not think you were going to say that, so I'm happy you did, because it's contrasting to some of the other ones we've heard. I'm excited about this compilation. All right, next up we have the one and only Steve Ewing of The Urge, which we got to talk to Steve a little before Christmas last year on episode 89. So a lot of really cool how they came up, what they ended up being on that episode. But here is Steve's pick.
Man, why are you gonna do me like that? Oh man, damn!
It could be more than one.
It's a hard one.
I gotta have more than one.
Top 3.
Combat Rock by The Clash,
Nice.
Zenyatta Mandata by The Police,
Nice.
and then Eye Against Eye, Bad Brains.
Hell yeah. Jeez, you're 3 for 3. You passed the test.
Oof.
Yeah. Damn.
Yep, and he's the first person to give us 3, and they're all awesome. So I mean, that's badass, and it definitely shows the influences for your band. So that's awesome.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's like a textbook. Like, oh, it all kind of like comes to the middle. It makes sense now.
All right, next up we have the one, the only Tucker Rule of Thursday. He joined us back in episode 92. We did the whole Full Collapse retro, talked about the come up for Thursday. Just a 90s, we'll call him 90s OG, right? Thursday started in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And a New Jersey OG. Just Tucker, we love you, dude. Appreciate you coming on, and here is Tucker's pick.
I would say either Quicksand Slip or Quicksand Manic Compression.
Ooh,
Nice.
great choice. So that Rival Schools tour must have been like a homecoming moment for you.
Dude, it was touring with your heroes, man, because you had like fucking, obviously Walter, and then you had Sammy on the drums. Sammy fucking played in every band you could think of in the whole entire world.
Limp Bizkit included.
Including Limp Bizkit. And then you had like Cash, who was this ridiculous bass player, and then Ian Love, who's just a super talented musician, producer. And the songs were just so great, man. And I got to watch them every night, and I got to fucking hang out with them and be friends with them till this day, So it was really crazy. You know what I mean? Like Walter fucking is in 2 of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
Well, he's in like 5 of my favorite bands, but 2 of my absolute favorite, which is Quicksand and Rival Schools.
Yes.
Damn.
Awesome.
Great answer. Yeah.
Great answer.
Thanks.
Slip is probably top 10, 15 albums for me personally.
Oh, dude, Phaser has that, that
yeah.
intro, that drum intro is just
So
so
that's
sick.
where you got it from.
Could have been, man. I stole a lot of shit from Alan Cage. I'll tell you that much. I got a lot of references from Alan Cage.
All right, next up we got Damien Moyal of As Friends Rust. It's a little solo project as well. He was a blast to talk to on episode 79 and 88. So we got a bunch of contenders here going for Greg's spot, but he was on twice. Always kind of share his time with us. But let's get into it with Damien.
I have a lot. I'm sure a lot of people just immediately start compiling a list of their favorite albums, right? But there was something in the original request. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the term comfort food was used.
Yep.
And so that kind of led me down this sort of, it became very like autumnal and sort of Thanksgiving holidays, sort of seasonal. I don't know, I guess is kind of where my mind took me. So, I could rattle off 100 albums that I'll never stop listening to and feel like I was born listening to. But because of that, I think where I settled was, and possibly just because I didn't want to, battle with myself anymore. So I just had to sort of pick one. But I settled on Low, the Low debut, I Could Live in Hope, which to me is kind of, it is very autumnal and sort of brown and kind of the seasons, sort of changing. I think nostalgically sort of correlated with that sort of sliding into winter and maybe these mixed feelings of kind of the more kind of jubilant holiday sort of family kind of aspects, but also the seasonal teenage depression kind of vibes. So it's a complicated album, but it's and I have a lot of those, and some I can't listen to anymore. But this is one that's been able to sort of just always matter to me, and I don't think a year has passed since first hearing it in 94, 95 that I haven't listened to it.
Nice. Yeah.
I always return to that one.
Yeah, 1994. It looks like it came out. I'm not familiar with this, but I did just add it to my library, and something I'll be listening to tomorrow.
Nice. Good suggestion.
I was going to say, I feel like this is like a book club where, like in this case, I knew the band. I didn't know the album, and I couldn't tell you. I know like what kind of like realm and wheelhouse they're in, but I don't know this album. But similar, it's now on my my next book to read, if you will.
That's right. The reason we've done this, right? We want to get stuff from people that we've talked to that love music and have been around music a ton to, what does the musician listen to? I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope you guys dig it. It's very minimal, very slow, beautiful, somber, pretty dark, but also just comforting, and I think nice. The way that the question kind of, that was the path the question led me down was, which ones, it became sort of a seasonal thing, but also something that was just comforting. And I think that's the one.
Very cool. Just a little sidebar on that question. Is it something that you're listening to consistently, or is it sacred and you listen to it, every 12 months rather than every month kind of thing?
I listen to it, sometimes I'll check it out a couple times or a few times during the year. Just kind of, I get in a mood, but it is definitely sort of triggered, I think, by the weather getting a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
There are a lot of albums that, they just may not ever bubble up to the surface of your, consciousness at other parts of the year. But as soon as the temperature drops 10 degrees, you're like, oh shit, it's time for, for me, there are a lot of those for me. It's like, there's a Kings of Convenience album that's very kind of fall transitioning to winter. Malcolm Middleton, he's one of the guys from Arab Strap, some of his solo stuff. It's usually a little sadder, I think, because I think those were traditionally, it was not always the best time of the year for me for many years. And sometimes you want to visit that a bit, but not get completely pulled into it. And a few, there are a few albums that can take me there, but not sink me.
We're approaching low season. low right? Season's coming up, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that makes complete sense to me, as I've had this conversation with my wife, because she's like, sometimes like, why are you listening to that? That doesn't sound very happy. And I'm like, makes me feel better when I'm done with it. Like, it's just this process you need to kind of go through, listening to something that might evoke some emotions that aren't necessarily great, but you're using it to, as a catharsis to like get by it. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think as we get older, we also, haven't there been studies that kind of explain why, like between the ages of, 16 and 25, music resonates with us on a different level? It's a lot more visceral, a lot more emotional. And as we get older and more distracted and busier, I think, and probably just neurologically even, we just can't really form those connections as deeply necessary, with music. So I think listening to albums like that is it's like a form of like cutting almost, where it's like you're kind of a little bit numb, or you don't seem to connect quite as deeply as you did when you were young. And every now and then you just want to feel you want to remind yourself that you can still feel something that deeply.
I totally buy into that. I've never heard of a study like that, but I mean, if we look at the bands and the albums we talk about, it's very rare that it's new bands that we just connected with, in our mid-30s. It's, hey, that album, who knows if it was actually good, but we loved it when we were 16,
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a nostalgic layer to that adds value too, right? Because that it got you through those times then. So it's almost like a life preserver, has validity. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like a friend or a partner that you're not with anymore, don't
Right.
have that relationship when you've moved on, but there's always going to be sort of a special sort of place for them in your, if not your heart, your memory banks, because it was somebody important at a time of your life that was important. So you can't just shake that, no matter how hard you try, and maybe we shouldn't have to.
All right, here we have Phil Lipscomb, the bassist of Taproot, and when we had Phil come back on to give us his picks, we must have talked to him for an hour, guys. Like, it could have been a whole episode itself. We love Phil. Phil is a music nerd just like we are, and he hopefully some of that conversation may see the light of day down the road if he's cool with it. So, but here we are with Phil's picks.
There is. I gave it a lot of thought, and there's a lot of cooler answers, like Rage Against the Machine or Stone Temple Pilots or something like that. But mine actually ended up on Bon Jovi's New Jersey.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's the one I seem to always go back to. And if I'm especially tired on a long drive, did this many times when we were touring, to the not so good pleasure of everybody else. They weren't necessarily happy with me, but 2, 3, 4 in the morning, I'd be blasting New Jersey just to keep me awake and singing along. And it's one of those ones that's just such a feel good, fun album, man. I love it.
Yeah, man, I could see that right now just looking at the track list. Hell yeah, that's awesome. Gotta stay awake in the tour bus, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the van and trailer at the time, but yeah.
I have visions of you just like banging on the steering wheel while everyone else is trying to sleep in the back.
More just singing out loud, not too much. I'm not much of a drummer, so. But yeah, they hate it, especially because I go to the deep cuts. It's not just like Bad Medicine and that kind of stuff. It's like what's on there, like Stick to Your Guns and Wild as the Wind and things like that. That Blood on Blood, like those are the songs I love too. I love every song on that album. So yeah, I just go through it all front to back, no pause or no skipping tracks.
So for that record, does it bring you back to like those memories of driving the tour, the van, or?
Yeah, so I mean those like Bon Jovi was one of the first bands I really kind of got into. I'm 45 now, so 88 I was 12, so right in that my formative years for music. Yeah, I remember seeing those songs on MTV and just being wanting Bon Jovi's hair back in the day.
Yes, that's awesome, man. The more we do these, the more I'm like, it is from that time frame for a lot of people, that like 12 to 16, 17 years old.
For sure.
One of those records that just hit you early on in your music fandom. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude, I loved them. And then I actually stopped listening to them for a long time just because they weren't cool anymore. And then I just would revisit them and I'd be like, man, I just love it. Yeah. So now I unashamedly love old Bon Jovi. I never got really into the new stuff, but the old Bon Jovi I absolutely love. Those, that and Slippery When Wet, of course.
Yeah,
good stuff. I actually, a little fun story. I got to see them in Cleveland. A friend of mine was Richie's guitar tech back, I want to say 2012. And so he got me pre-show, got to go backstage and check out his guitars. And I actually got to be on stage playing one of his guitars through his talk box.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I actually have the little piece of, he cut off a little piece of the, little tubing thing.
Yep. And
I still have that as a little souvenir from that show.
12-year-old you was probably freaking out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. It's pretty darn cool. I just, you know, not being a guitar player, it was still just like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm going to do it.
That's so cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, I got to check out all the whole rig, got to check out the basses and, you know, kind of where everybody stands and all that, man. It was neat.
It's so good. That's
Yeah,
so good.
that Bon Jovi album kind of can fit any time period, I guess. That romantic, I don't know, fun, loving 80s rock, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is, right? And I can see why that stuck with you and why it's comfort food, right? That's how we ended up at this question was, what's your comfort food album? That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right, next on the docket is Ryan Sinnett, the bassist of the 2000s OGs, the Distillers. Super fun to talk to Ryan. He's another guy that I think we'll definitely have on at some point. I mean,
oh yeah,
Sing Sing Death House just turned 20, so I don't know, maybe we could do something with that. Here is Ryan Sinn's comfort food pick.
It's so hard to pick one. I've been thinking about this since you asked me, like 2 days. I keep going back to my records and looking.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about music is a lot of those comfort albums go with mood. So they probably like throughout different times of your life. Like I can think of my first one was John Denver Greatest Hits tape that I had. My mom used to sing that to me when I was a kid.
Nice.
And then like Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, and Steve Miller's Greatest Hits. Those are like kind of like family jams, stuff that was always playing. So that kind of, you know, comfort takes me back. And but man, yeah, throughout all of, I think probably the most unpunk album. I get yelled at a lot by punkers for listening to this, but I think it's probably the album I've listened to more than any other record. It'd be Lateralis by Tool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Great album. Great album.
Yeah, that's,
I mean, we did a whole episode on it, so yeah.
Oh, run. Yeah, I was, like I said, I was trying to go through and narrow it down to one. And I mean, everybody from Faith No More, Killing Joke, The Cure, Beastie Boys, and I'm trying to narrow it down. And then I just like, and I went into the iTunes play count and just kind of looked and went, oh, well, there we go. I guess it's that one.
Yeah, the data doesn't lie.
Yeah, right.
That's a great call. A great record, Ryan. I mean, we go back. I think what episode was that, guys? 80. It was in the 80s. Was it early 80s? I can't even remember.
I don't know. They blend
we
in.
did a right where we did a Lateralis deep dive because it turned. Geez, when did it turn 20 last year? It turned 20 in 2021. So, yeah.
Wow.
That's wild too, right? It feels like it came out yesterday.
That's crazy. Yeah. Wow. 20 years.
Yeah, episode 74. If you want to go back and listen.
70. Oh, I'm going to now. Yeah.
Oh, you don't have to, but if anybody else wants to.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back
too.
and listen to it. That's a fun album to deep dive on, especially when you get into all the conspiracy theories. If nothing else, it's some great fan fiction.
All right. Question sidebar number 2 off of that album. What would you say your favorite track off that album is? Which is a tough question too.
Man, either The Grudge or Parable.
Nice.
Great picks. Yeah. Those are standouts when we basically listened to it a lot all the time, but a real lot leading up to that episode. And those were 2 that stood out. They stood out back when I was a kid. They stood out as an adult.
Yeah. I like them. I don't know the right way to put it. The kind of rhythmic aspect of it is almost hypnotic. I put that on a lot when I'm drawing or painting or kind of doing any type of visual art and kind of zone out. So a lot of times I'll put the record on, and then there's I think it's like track 9 comes on. I'm like, whoa, we're already here. I started over, you know?
Yeah. Yep. All right. This one's special for me. One of my best friends, Rob Riccatelli, gave us his picks. You might have remembered him from episode 17 way back in the day, and also recently with episode 96. So Rob's got some interesting down home cooking comfort food albums for us next.
We love you, Rob.
Love you, man.
Yeah, Rob.
I hate this question, and it's been asked to me so many times, not in the exact form that you just did, but it's like choosing a kid. It really is. Yeah. It's like hard. How do you pick just one? Because you have so many. Let's go with, I got a couple. Can I do a couple?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. First one that comes to mind is Born in the USA from Springsteen.
Nice.
That is a front to back album for me. The way you phrased it, Nate, was like, what's your, I think you said your home cooking, like front to back go to.
Yep.
That is one of those albums that I love listening to front to back. No question. And another one that pops in my mind is the Hysteria Def Leppard album.
Ooh,
nice.
Nice.
Just another one of those front to back. maybe on a different day in a different mood than the Springsteen one, but driving in the car on a hot summer day with the windows down and that album turned up super loud, it sounds so good.
That's perfect. Like that paints the perfect picture for that, because I can totally see myself doing that. I could see us doing that, like headed to Sunday Fun Day or any of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. It's one of those albums that fits anywhere, but that's just one in particular. I'm like, crank it up.
I was going to say the strip club too.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah,
it fits everywhere.
It fits everywhere. Yeah, it's a great album.
Little kids dance recitals, bar mitzvahs. The list really goes on and on.
Two very different styles, and I love that. And are they both from the 80s, right? Hysteria's 80s.
Both from the 80s.
I'm
both from the 80s. Yeah, 84 and 87.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. One more honorable mention in, just so people that are listening and be like, who is this old man? Does he listen to anything current whatsoever? This isn't even that current really, but you guys know me. We've talked about this before. My favorite band of the 21st century is definitely the Killers. So Hot Fuss album, another one right there.
Great. Nice. Great call. Yep. And yeah, I remember bonding over the Killers with you when we first really started hanging out, being friends. So that's awesome, man. That's a great record.
Which is hard to believe that album will be 20 years old in a couple of years.
I think it's 18 this year, right? It came out in 2004.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Episode 94 guest, Brian Fair of Overcast and Shadows Fall and Hell Night now, I believe. Man, this is pretty cool to have people like him on and relive shows and episodes that we had done previous to him coming on, and then to get his perspective on it, and then also to get his comfort food album, which is right here.
Ooh, that is a tough one because there's like different vibes, but yeah, I have to just be fully honest. The one that I, since day one, heard that I will always still can put on at any time is Spiritualized Laser Guided Melodies. It's the most lush and mellow yet enthralling record ever. The second one would be The Smiths, The Queen is Dead. I could listen to that at any time ever. But those two, those are the ones. But I Spiritualize, if I'm honest with myself, that's the record I would grab and honestly put on all the time. I usually wake up my whole house with it still on vinyl, like when I'm making coffee in the morning. So yeah, that would be the one, and it never fails.
So does the family love it or hate it? Because you're waking them up with it.
It's mellow enough that it's not not a vibe crusher. They're not as psyched when I'm like not super psyched on the kids aren't getting up or whatever, and I'll just drop like DRI's first record at like full teeth rattling wake up volume. That gets the whole house moving, but people aren't really that happy about it. So, but that's a go-to. They know that they need to just get the fuck up when they hear like, when DRI kicks in, and they're just like, yep, okay, sorry, Dad, we'll get up.
Yep. Get moving. Time to go to school.
Yep, time to go to school.
And to round us out before we give our picks, we're not on the caliber of these guys, but we're going to give our picks at the end. But next up, 90s OG. Keep saying that. New Jersey royalty, Benny Horowitz, Low End Theory fame, Killing Gift, and you all know and love him from the Gaslight days, Gaslight Anthem. Just had him on last week, episode 99, and great guest, funny dude. I'd love to have a few beers with that dude in person. But here's Benny giving his comfort food pick.
There's a bunch, but the one that definitely stands out would be Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Because it's comforting song wise in a lot of ways, but it's also like, to me, one of the ultimate production records where I've gotten, when I go to a venue and somebody's like, oh, what do you like sound wise or something? I'm like, you ever heard of Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti? I'm like, make my drum sound like that and I'll be cool, Yeah. So it's been the benchmark for so much, but it's also the record that I can just like use as my release because I know it so well on drums that like can put on my headphones and melt with that record. And it actually does a lot like for my soul, So I'll say that.
That's a great call. 10 Years Gone, man. I fucking love 10 Years Gone. Such a great song.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think it was really their sweet spot.
All right. There you have it. Those were 12 of our guests over the last 100 episodes, and not everybody we've had. There are a few in there that we didn't get a chance to connect with on this go round, but a lot of really fun guests back there. So go check out any and all of our interviews with these amazing folks anytime you get a couple minutes and you want to nerd out with us again. But that being said, guys, let's get into our picks, right? We got to give our picks now.
Yeah,
right?
we got comfort food.
Nate, what do you got? You're at the table. It's Thanksgiving Day. This comfort food in front of you. What are you taking a bite into first? Mashed potatoes? What's going on?
Man, there's a few, right? I think I have like 3 written down here that I kind of always circle back to. Thanksgiving, ready to, relax, not think about anything, and just experience the true magical nature of music nerdery as it is. And one of mine is, this is kind of an obvious one, but not really, because they got a big catalog, is Pearl Jam's debut album 10. For me, is a all-time comfort album. It's a seamless album. Big fan, obviously, right? But and their legacy, they're all their albums are great, but 10 is just I think the intro starts it off really comfort album-ish, because it's just easy to be fully absorbed in that intro of that album. Additionally, Queens of the Stone Age, the self-titled album, is an absolute comfort album for me. And that was like one of the last ones that I discovered. I mean, it was like Songs for the Deaf, Rated R, and then that I kind of went backwards. But this is in my comfort food album stash, just because it's easy listening, but has such a weird vibe that I can't fully understand, and I almost go back to it to dissect it every time. And additionally,
wait a second. You can't quit me, baby. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
That really spoke to you, Nate?
That one I used to be
Great
a teenage
song.
hand model. So good. Yeah. And I got a third one too. Kings of Leon, Come Around Sundown.
Nice.
Is my like bona fide road trip album that comes on. Me and my wife, we play it when we go to the mountains, the desert, the beach. It's just a perfect background record. So these 3, but that one's kind of got that vibe. They all have their own little interesting flavor, I guess you'd say. So those are my 3 that came to mind immediately. There's a ton more, but obviously I'm not going to go all crazy.
That fits the food theme, flavor, Nate, which you love to call back to in interviews, and it always works.
It works. Yeah, I guess most of the time. Recently, it seems to work better. It's a little bit more dialed now, not instead of like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like pizza.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. And actually, this will be pretty quick because we've somehow managed to talk about 2 out of these 3 albums a few times, I think. Anyway, first one, As Friends Rest 1. We did the whole deep dive with Damien on it back in 79. If you know that album and you want to relive the magic with the vocalist, check out episode 79. If you've never heard the album, fire it up on your streaming platforms. Go check out the episode. But again, it's an album that turned 20 last year, has not left my rotation. Next one, same theme. Crime in Stereo's Troubled Stateside came out in 2006, so 16 years old. We talked about it back on episode 10 for the He's on Fire 3 album run episode. That was album number 2 of that run for me. Hasn't left my rotation. Always a go-to. Go back, if you dare, go back and listen to episode 10. I think we're a little fresh in the game. I haven't listened to that episode probably since it dropped, and maybe I should. And the last one, on the heavier side, this is one that has not left my rotation in 18 years. It came out in 2004. It's 100 Demons, self-titled album. Came out on Deathwish Inc., Jacob Bannon of Converge's label. And I can say with no hesitation, it's the best modern metalcore album. And what I mean by that is post-2000. Without hesitation. It's 9 songs. It's 25 minutes. Not a skip. It's perfect. There's some melody in there with the song Repeat Process. If you have never listened to it, go check it out. If you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I listen to that running. It's always on my like road race playlist, whenever I'm lifting or anything like that. Yeah, check it out. That's me.
Nice. All right, my comfort food picks. I also had 3. You just can't narrow it down. We're music nerds. We love all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to give
3's hard. Even 3's
very hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. These were kind of go-to gut reaction feelings for me. Just kind of like how we sprung the question on most of our guests. So for me, first honorable mention I'll give you is this is going to sound, we've never really talked about it, but the Bare Naked Ladies Rock Spectacle, which is a live record that I listened to a ton when I was a kid, driving around, going on summer vacations with my dad. So that was a record that kind of got played a lot along with Petty's Greatest Hits. But yeah, man, that record just brings me back to a time and place every time I listen to it. And that's why it's my first honorable mention. Second one is Atmosphere's God Loves Ugly. If nice. You know me, you grew up around me, you went to concerts with me like you two both did. Yeah, it's going to be one of my favorite records of all time, especially at the time frame. Like I'm not in the headspace that I was when that was hitting me the way it did, but it's still really good. It's a great underground hip hop classic. So Atmosphere's God Loves Ugly is my second one. And the GOAT for me is always Counting Crows, August and Everything After. I talked about it a ton on here. You can hear me, wax poetic about it on episode 3 if you want to, but that's my comfort food album. I always come back to that one on August 1st every year, and it makes its way into my life more often than I even realize it's happening. So Counting Crows, August, Everything After.
That is a cozy up to the fire album.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's a great pick, and we all know you love that album. I'm not surprised you picked it, but it's an album that I've revisited over the last couple of years as a result of these conversations. So, and it fits this perfect.
Yeah, actually, all of our picks are kind of the T-shirt that we're wearing, right? It's like, oh, I could have guessed that, but maybe not that album specifically. But it makes sense for you as an individual. So that's another thing with music, right? It's that part identity, which is always cool.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out, checking out any of our interviews with any of these fine folks on this list and beyond. Anybody that's spun an episode of ours, man, we are super appreciative of all of you, and couldn't be here, wouldn't be here at episode 100 and hopefully beyond without people like you who press play on an episode. So thank you for doing that.
Like we said in the start, we appreciate, that's the word, appreciation. If no one listened, we've always said we'd still do this, but the fact that people do listen and want to join us really makes it special, and that's not lost on us. So thanks again.
Exactly. This is it's like a resume episode, it's a little bit of brag and right episode, but it's also an appreciation episode with regards to, this is a true nerd pinnacle moment. We hit 100. We got everyone to come back, or a lot of people to come back and chat their favorite albums. And it all goes back to the people tuning in and the people coming on to chat with us. So it's a full on tribute episode. So yeah, thanks everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
See you later.
Peace, podheads.
Peace.